Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the August 28th meeting of the Elkhart City of Board of Zoning Appeals. As just a reminder, video comments will only be taken on WebEx. You cannot comment on Facebook. You can watch only. Please speak up and identify yourself before you begin to speak. The purpose of this meeting is to review and consider all requests for relief for any standard in the zoning ordinance, including variances, use variances, special exceptions, conditional use requests, and administrative appeals. All of the cases heard tonight will have a positive, negative, or no decision made by the board. If no decision is made, the petition will be set for another hearing. If a decision is made that you disagree with, either as a petitioner or an interested party, you must file for an appeal of the board's decision no later than 30 days after the decision is made in an appropriate court. If you think you may potentially want to appeal the decision of this board, you must give this board a written appearance before the hearing. If you are here in person, a sign-in sheet is provided which will act as an appearance. You should sign the sheet if you want to speak, but also if you do not wish to speak but might want to appeal our decision. If you are appearing by WebEx or Facebook, please put your name and address in the comments section. A written petition that is set for hearing tonight satisfies that requirement for the petitioner. If you file your appeal later than 30 days after the decision of this board or given no written appearance tonight, you may not appeal the board's decision. Because the rules on appeal are statutory and specific on what you can do, the board highly suggests you seek legal advice. If you are the petitioner, in addition to filing an appeal, you may first file a motion for hearing within 14 days of the board's decision. Let's see. Minimum quorum announcement. Tonight we have our minimum quorum of 3 members present, including proxy members. While we can conduct business with 3 members, any vote must be unanimous. And anything less than a unanimous vote will be considered no action, and the case will be reset for next month. Our proxies will allow us to take action on all items. With respect to the public comment portion of this meeting, public comments will only be taken on the specific petition being heard by the board. Unlike city council meetings where there is time for anyone to comment on any issues, we do not have that at BZA, and comments will only be taken for or against petition before the board. Roll call.
Mulvaney,
Here.
Davis, Lightman,
Here.
Evangelica,
Here. Okay. Approval of today's agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mulvaney,
Yes.
Davis, Lightman,
Yes.
Evangelica.
Yes. Okay, so moved. Approval of the proof of publications that were published on August 26, 2025.
Move we approve.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can we do that? I think we can do that. Okay, new business.
The petition is 19 UV10, which is an amended request. The petitioner is Elkhart Community Schools. The site location is 2424 California Road. The request is to amend 19 UV10, which was granted September 19, 2019, to allow the Elkhart Community Schools Teenage Parent Program as a permitted use under Section 18.2 permitted uses in the M1 Limited Manufacturing District. The request is to update the number of children from 18 to 66. The Elkhart City Board will hear this amendment the Elkhart City Board of Zoning Appeals will hear this amendment as a staff item.
Okay. Can you tell us what you want to do?
So we're expanding our program as we're doing with so many of our career center programs right now. We'd like to be able to offer more spaces for student parents.
Very
That's the
good.
request.
And also the staff children as well.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry, yes.
all right. Any questions from the board? Nope. Okay. I don't believe we have anyone here for a public meeting. No one on the web. So we close the public meeting and go to the staff report.
Due in part to the new state level requirement that childcare providers obtain a letter from their local municipality regarding childcare licensure, this request is before you again today. The request, or this case, comes to you as a use variance rather than a special exception due to the underlying zoning classification of M1. The petitioner here has operated the Teenage Parent Program on California Road campus since 1977, and in the 2424 California Road location since 2004. This amended request comes before the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to update the number of children cared for at the California Road facility. Based on correspondence from the program coordinator, when the PACE program moved from the Career Center to Hawthorne, it freed up room at the California Road site to expand into the vacated space in order to care for more children. The approval in 2019 allowed 18 children. According to the State of Indiana's Family and Social Services Administration and administrative agency Brighter Futures, the property has a child care center license now for up to 66 children. They undergo an annual inspection and no local complaints have been received regarding the daycare operation. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of the use variance based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the amended approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the property currently houses the program and to date staff has not had any complaints regarding the use from participants or other governmental bodies. Number two, the use value of the area adjacent will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the expanded use currently exists and is part of the overall curriculum for the Elkhart Community Schools. This program has existed in some form on this campus since 1977. Number three, the need for the variance does arise from some condition peculiar to the property because the use would not be permitted without board action, and the state of Indiana requirements for child care facilities have been updated now and now require approval at the local level. The amended request will ensure the state license and the local approval are consistent. This process is the only option at the local level to achieve the state's requirements. Number four, the strict application of the terms of this ordinance may constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought, because the property was developed as an educational facility where a majority of the uses in the underlying zoning district could not be accommodated at this location. And number five, the approval of this variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, which calls for this area to be developed for institutional uses. The use is consistent with the land use plan. There were no letters mailed because this is this afternoon as a staff.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay. I call for a motion.
I move to approve use variance 19 UV10 and adopt the petitioner's documents and presentation together with the staff's findings of fact as the board's findings of fact in the present petition.
Mr. Mulvey, I just want clarification for the record that this is the amended 19 UV10, just for clarification.
Yes, I move to approve the amended use variance 19 UV10 and adopt the petitioner's documents and presentation together with the staff's findings of fact as the board's findings of fact in the present petition.
I second.
Roll call.
Mulvaney,
Yes.
Lightman,
Yes.
Evangelica,
Yes. All right, the motion passes. Now that's a big shock to you. Thank you so much for
Definitely
coming
is a
in the
shock
afternoon.
These days, so I appreciate all of
You
your hard
bet.
work. Give us that again. Thank you.
You bet.
Is the reason why we do this because it's amended?
No, we've got now some training.
Oh, okay.
So I adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, we can either do it on the road. This is still on, this is advertised as part of the meeting, so this is still part of the meeting.
Okay.
We'll adjourn after.
Oh, okay, so the training is,
Well, and this is an introduction of the UDO.
This is the new updated.
This is a
Super
introduction.
duper.
Yep. So give me just a second, get the slideshow going.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You guys have all heard about Ronnie Davis.
No, we're still on the record, and the meeting is still rolling,
Okay. That's what
so we'll wait till after.
I did not receive a packet. Is there anything else?
I didn't either on the training, no.
Okay, I just wondered if I.
This is all gonna be visual.
Perfect, sounds
It
good,
is,
save a
but
tree.
now I'm panicking because now it's got, oh, okay. It's going through.
I was trying to buy time for you.
Well, it's not.
But you have to find it first,
I'm
right?
not gonna be here on the 11th.
Okay.
Sorry, I wrote that.
Okay, so I need this for the meeting, but I'm sorry.
Share. Hold
I
on.
don't wanna just read through it and make some notes.
Okay.
Share. Come on. There we go.
So are we gonna have enough meeting?
I'll have to find a proxy.
Yeah, they know I'm not coming.
I'll have to find a proxy.
Which we'll have a discussion about that also.
Okay, great. This is an update for the City of Elk Grove Unified Development Ordinance. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This will go. Okay, there we go. The comprehensive plan serves as the policy foundation for the Unified Development Ordinance. It has policies regarding how the city should develop, what and where infrastructure improvements are needed to support development, suggests changes in UDO, and provides guidance on the creation of capital improvement plans based on the infrastructure improvements. Likewise, you will find that the UDO's purpose and intent statements are consistent with the comprehensive plan and are supported by the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan. The way this works is that the comprehensive plan is the overarching document for the entire city. It documents the vision for the city, its values, development aspirations, and what and where development should be located. After the broad policy is set and the land use and transportation maps are created, the comprehensive plan should last about 20 years, with periodic updates. But in between, sub-area plans are created to give certain areas in the community more specific development and character direction. These are implemented through sub-area or special area plans like a downtown plan, a neighborhood plan, or streetscape plan, to name a few. To implement the policies in all of these documents, the Unified Development Ordinance is updated from time to time, modifying regulations, standards, requirements, and intent statements so the UDO stays in line with the city's values and delivers a desirable and predictable built environment. When the city started this process, it was certainly to merge the zoning and subdivision ordinance codes. At that time, it was not intended to make such drastic changes. However, several sub-area plans were created that influenced and changed the trajectory of the UDO. However, the goals of the project did not change. These have always been the goals, and to ensure that Elk Grove remains economically competitive while there were efficient and effective land use regulations. And the goals on the screen were to create a more user-friendly and understandable ordinance, simplify the regulations by removing inconsistencies and redundancies, to reorganize the ordinance to increase ease of locating information, adding more graphics and tables, increase the flexibility for staff and applicants to determine the best outcome for a site, update districts and standards to allow new development types, to ensure consistency with state and federal law, and to reflect the vision and policies of the comp plan and other sub-area plans. One of the topics that emerged during the creation of the sub-area plans was more housing choices and opportunities within the city. We as planners call it the missing middle house. Under most zoning codes from the 1960s through the mid-2000s, the only choices were single-family homes and apartments. Many other types were forgotten about in most cities. With the rising prices and costs for housing, other housing types are more economical and can fit within the character of most neighborhoods. These can include duplexes, fourplexes, cottage courts, townhouses, smaller apartment complexes, and live-work units. So I mentioned the term UDO, but what is a UDO? A UDO combines a series of different codes into one code so there's more consistency between regulations, such as definitions and other terms. Administration and enforcement are consistent between the codes, and more flexibility is allowed because the codes are combined under one ordinance. Usually these codes include zoning, subdivision, historic preservation, and floodplain regulations. The benefits of a UDO. Some of the greatest benefits are simplifying the development process. There is one place for residents and developers to go to find out what they need to do in order to build something in Elkhart. All the regulations are in one place. The regulations are unified and consistent, so the petitioner knows what to expect in the process and what the city expects in terms of development. This is critical for a developer to make their development work and bring it to market faster. In this ordinance, there will be enhanced visual clarity, a lot of tables and graphics used to illustrate the regulations and the character of the city desires. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this case, it is true. This UDO will allow more orderly growth through more flexibility of provisions and the creation of alternative methods to accomplish the goals and intent of the ordinance. The UDO is not black and white. There is gray area there to help get development to market faster, reduce the costs of development, and without sacrificing the character of areas within the community. Some early methodology. During the beginning process, we needed to understand what physical development existed throughout the city. One of the goals in any code update is to minimize the number of nonconformities and even reduce them if possible. So by using our GIS system, our consultant completed a whiskers and box plot analysis. Basically, we determined the minimum, median, and maximum values and those in between so that we could figure out what standard we would need to have the least number to create the least number of nonconformities and still have a buildable lot. So as they completed this analysis on the lot and width area, we determined the number of nonconformities in each district, and then determined how you reduce the nonconformities by changing that standard. So in this example above shows you the R1 district, and the current standard is 75 feet. And with that current standard of 75 feet, you have 21% of the existing vacant lots as non-conforming. By changing the dimensional standard to 60 feet, you reduced that to a 10% number of non-conforming lots. So we picked up 11% by just reducing the dimensional size from 75 down to 60. The way it's re-envisioning our UDO districts. Initially, we were not going to change the zoning districts, but as the two sub-area plans were completed, it became clear that there was a need to change the number of districts to reduce some that weren't being used. These are the new districts above. We tried to give them names that more accurately represented the type of development in each district versus the R1, R2, R3, R5. Which didn't tell the reader what the district meant. So with the new nomenclature, instead of R1, it's suburban residential. R2 is compact residential, urban residential, and so on and so forth. And then the non-residential districts provide more explanation rather than commercial business or neighborhood business, which we still kept. We have professional services, neighborhood business, community, central business district, central business core, which is one of the overlay districts, institutional, research and development, manufacturing, and planned unit development. So these consolidated and provide a name to give the reader a better understanding of what to expect in that district by use. There are 4 overarching sections within the ordinance that guide development. They include uses, building types and standards, overlay districts, and development standards. The uses were pulled out separately into its own chapter, and more use regulations were created. This was done for multiple purposes. This was to allow the city to manage the impacts of uses and to allow more of the uses to be permitted instead of having so many uses reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Secondly, we wanted to allow for the meaningful integration of both horizontal and vertical mixing of uses on the site, and this would promote that. Lastly, we wanted to focus on the character of the development, what it looks like, how it functions within the streetscape and the neighborhood, and to ensure that development was pedestrian focused. Building types and standards. We added a new chapter for building types and standards. Instead of mixing building types with uses, we wanted to focus individually on uses, individually on building types. Many different uses can be in many different building types. However, not all building types are compatible within every zoning district. So we created a list of building types and then noted which districts give those building types were permitted in. We show examples of each building type, give a description of it, and there are standards for each building type. Overlay districts, especially in the Benham and the downtown overlay districts, the building type takes priority over the land use because these two districts are focused on form or character of the buildings and the development rather than the uses permitted. Overlay districts are needed to either provide more specific regulations that further restrict development such as wetland and special flood hazard areas or the airport, or they provide more flexibility of development and focus on character like the riverfront, downtown, and neighborhood overlay districts. In that case, they strip away some of the underlying provisions of that base district. Development standards. Development standards are the last major character or category of standards that regulate development. These include parking, landscape signage, and fences. These changes focused on the clarification of standards, compliance with state or federal law, reduction or change in standards, and the addition of graphics to show the intent of what is desired. And some of the key changes. In creating the UDO, there were 3 areas of change. What has stayed the same, new content added, and what was changed or modified from the existing ordinance into the new. First, what stayed the same and what we carried over. Most of the major elements of the zoning and subdivision ordinances have been carried over, including the development standards, uses, general regulations, and overlay and special districts. The uses have been taken out of the districts and organized into an easy to read chart as shown on the slide. I know it's a little small, but it does give you the uses and then what base districts the uses are permitted. The general regulations were carried over and to better explain the concepts, providing additional graphics, but no changes were made to the overlay and special districts listed on the slide. And I know I'm moving through this very fast, but I'm trying to be mindful of your time. We will have plenty of time for questions at the end.
We'll get a copy of this eventually to look
Yes.
at, right?
And this is a condensed, so I can also provide you an expanded version of this as well, because I did condense this down to be mindful of time for you all as well. Some of the new content added in the ordinance. The overall layout of the document has changed from what the zoning was before. This is because we've added the subdivision and preservation ordinance and created one place for definition and one place for administration. We consolidated the number of zoning districts from 15 to 9. We added a hearing officer process that would allow the plan commission to delegate certain processes and to allow the hearing officer to make a decision on variances or conditional uses more often than the BZA. We added new examples of design concepts and uses such as clustered development, cottage court development, and allowed new uses more modern and technologically driven. And to kind of pause for a moment on the hearing officer, what that is, it will be a member of the staff that will hear minor variances and minor derivations from the regulations that will be able to meet and address those more frequently than we would for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Great.
And that would either be ideally either the director or AD assigned to be the hearing officer. Procedurally, it would work the same, but we could meet more often and roll more stuff through the process. Building typologies, talked about this before, but again, it talks about the building type rather than necessarily the uses within the district. And then in each section, there is its own set of development standards that appear there as well. we added, rules of measurement. This section on rules of measurement so that everyone using the document knows how planning staff will calculate the average setbacks, build two zones, etc. It takes the mystery out of how staff is determining your average setback and build two zones. That way it's laid out. There's an entire section within the document that has the graphics and the example that you have up there is floor area ratio and how that's determined. But that way everyone knows how the staff is determining the calculations.
But we can override those if we choose.
If they would like to file for a variance and cannot meet those requirements, they are definitely still permitted to file for variance.
Okay.
The parking standards have been updated and modernized by exempting some areas from parking minimums, creating flexible parking credits, and adding electric vehicle parking standards. And this is one of the examples of the new technology where we're trying to establish some development standards.
So just like, wheelchair accessible, you're going to have electric parking in
Yes.
every parking lot?
We have some credits given, so in certain circumstances where you have X number of electric vehicle plug-in stations, you get credit for X number of regular parking. So as
Oh, I
as
see.
an incentive
Okay.
to allow some of the technology, some of the new technology. We've changed the landscape and buffering section by consolidating everything into one chapter and then changing some of the standards. And some of the standards that we've modified are going for our perimeter tree planting from 40 foot down to 30. And then requiring some irrigation systems for commercial projects greater than 1 acre. And then changing the fence requirements on corner side yard locations, which this body has heard probably 2 or 3 of in the past year.
Yeah.
So that has been implemented in the new, changed and updated in the new ordinance. Continuing on what's changed, updated development standards, again, to allow more flexibility, consolidate uses and simplify them, and added in more specific development standards in order to regulate the impacts of that standard. Again, adding graphics, expanding the definitions and ensuring that each use has a definition, reduced some parking requirements, and added in graphics for buffer yards to provide clarity of the regulation. This is continuing what's changed, condensed the administrative procedures. Again, that is putting everything into one chapter and what every body and staff, what their role is. We've had the Preservation Commission will be moving from a designated local historic district to a conservation district. And we've updated the enforcement penalty by adding a right of entry for inspection. For subdivisions, updating the regulations to reflect modern subdivision development practices, ADA requirements, and street developments and designs by the Department of Public Works. And the example that we have is the cluster development. On the left, you see conventional sprawl, which everyone has probably a 3/4 to an acre lot, versus on the other, where you have the conservation development, where you have the same number of houses, but they're on smaller lots clustered together while preserving the open space and natural elements on property. And the top is the cottage court, and that is actually a new concept for the city of Elkhart. But we wanted to again get in front of it with more modern regulations. So in the event that a developer would want to develop a cottage court development, we would like to have some development standards by which to measure the frontage.
What's the difference between the cottage court and the one on the right?
And the cluster, the cottage court at the top is a series of smaller villa type homes on a central drive. And the cluster at the bottom is more of a traditional layout, but they are clustered together on smaller lots. Those can be more of your standard size homes, but on a smaller lot. The cottage is a smaller house on a smaller lot.
I lived in a cottage court in Phoenix with a very strict HOA. If you want me to see if I can get my hands on it for you.
That'd be great. Yeah, well, we're gonna need all the backup information that we can, because it is new, it is relatively.
It's actually really nice.
And I visited some in other states, and they are really.
Creates a mini neighborhood right there.
Yeah, and you have
instant
like
any neighborhood.
pool and a tennis court, like all right
Like a
there.
communal.
And it was just 16 houses. It was really nice.
The sign regulations, I don't know, my notes are out of order, but the sign regulations. I apologize for the construction. We've updated calculations for signable area and expanded the list of signs not requiring a permit. Added new allowable temporary signs. Feather flags have been on the front of everyone's.
Right?
So, inserted them and allowed them as a temporary sign. And again, we've tried to then standardize the time allowance for all temporary signs. So you don't have to go from one to the next, depending on the type of sign. It's standardized across the board. Go. How to use Go. With this document, there is a digital version that is hyperlinked, so you can easily navigate it. Within the user's manual, there is a more robust table of contents that explains the purpose and what you will find in each section. Here's the table of contents. So the 17 chapters know exactly what's occurring in each chapter. This is at the front end of the document. The district section, there are several pages. There's a several page spread that gives an overview of the least intensive development to the most intensive development within the description and providing a description of the district, its intent, typical characteristics of development, and the permitted building types. So the example that we have is the least intense residential to the more intense institutional, and this is just a snapshot from the front of the document, but it again provides the intent, typical characteristic, and the different building types that would be permitted in each of those districts. And then we have a how-to guide that each section, there are subsections, and these subsections are again a hyperlink that would take you to each section. And here we have some general understandings of the UDO and how it relates to zoning. And again, this is at the front of the document as well. And then the process using, so in the process section, there's a chart that explicitly explains how an applicant would move through the process, through the project development. Where to look for things in the UDO and find the steps that would take to complete that process. So essentially, it's a 4-step process. So the first, you would find your property on the zoning map, and then you would review the zoning districts and any use conditions for that district. And then continuing on, you would look at your development standards, so your building types, general regulations, parking, landscaping, design, and design criteria. So that essentially is how the development would come together. And then continuing on, your science standards, and then any environmental, if you're in any kind of overlay district or wetland area, and then your development types. And then if you would need a subdivision, any kind of a rezoning, how to work through that, or any kind of a conditional or special exception. And once you would finish that, you would be issued your zoning clearance. So this is at the front end of and we've been using this flow chart to go through our tech review and UDO as a whole. And we think it's come together and it's working really well.
Well, it makes it easy to find out when you are looking at buying a property, you know exactly what you're getting, as opposed to the realtor telling the buyer one thing.
Right, and how
Finding
many
out.
times have we had that
Yeah.
happen?
It happened again this week.
Oh, jeez.
We have the opportunity, if you wanted to go online, you could look at the draft, the full draft version at cityofelkhart.udo.com.
When are they gonna put the final?
That is online right now. The most final version of the draft is online. It is still a fluid document where changes are being made legally.
You think it'll remain a fluid document forever?
No, it's gonna be finalized and wrapped up. We are going to take this, if everything works out, to Plan Commission in October. And then might take a cycle or two with the legal department working through drafting the ordinance, because we have to repeal all the old ordinances, and of which there are dozens. Zoning ordinance, and then to introduce the new document. So it might take a little bit, but I would anticipate well before the end of the year, it will be official. And the way we are envisioning this, because this is new, we are going to have training for the boards and staff. And at either of those activities, the general public or developers can come in as well and learn at the same time. And that you're probably going to do either a half year or yearly updates and kind of a how's it working with the plan commission. So if we're seeing a particular aspect or element of the UBO that keeps coming back today that we didn't understand or envision that occurring, we would be able to take that and kind of fix that before it went on and on and on. So that's going to be either semi-annual or annually to ensure that it's working the way that it's supposed to.
And I assume fences are addressed, because that is a continuing.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
the current standards are not consistent with the state.
Yes, we have updated that, so we are more consistent, we are much more consistent with the state, we are slightly more rigorous with some aspects, but we are far more compliant or consistent with the state.
It is the most user-friendly, I mean, I've got it on my desk, it's the most user-friendly ordinance we have ever had.
And 'cause right now, you gotta look all over the place
That's
sometimes to
correct.
get an answer.
Correct, and not just with these topics, but with other topics, you know, it's always a search and find, and then there's one outlier.
Will the historic conservation district be wrapped into this new UDO, or is
Yes.
that, okay,
Yes.
so it won't be a separate ordinance?
That will not be a separate ordinance, and we will be, I have to have a couple special commission meetings, because there's nuances that I didn't have a good grasp of, so that's on me. So we're having to kind of work through that, but I've never done one of these large updates in my 10 years. I've done a common plan of that 11 years ago, so.
Oh, you have, this has been
Really
driven by Eric very much.
Great job.
I'm excited.
I have to leave,
Let me just shut the meeting off.
okay, good.
Could we close the meeting then?
Yes, please, adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
roll call.
All
Just,
in favor?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. We're done.
Nancy Wilson is the clerk of the Board of Works, and